If you've ever heard about Pokemon ROM hacks, you probably know the name Pokemon Snakewood, the zombie apocalypse game that goes in all kinds of directions with its story, Fakemon, and incredibly cringy dialogue. Well, what if I told you that this zombified Pokemon game actually had a recent update that fixes most of the bugs and even gives it a ton of quality of life improvements to make the game playable, because the regular version is incredibly tedious to get through. So let's fight through waves of zombie hordes, wipe the floor with the 7 deadly sins, and ride the 4 legendary horsemen right through Pokemon Improved Snakewood. You wake up in a town not really remembering what happened. All you can see is that everything around you is destroyed. You walk up to some of the ruins of one of the houses and you can see 3 Pokeballs. As you decide to pick one up, you see that there is a ball toy inside. This will be your partner throughout this cruel world. And as you step outside of the town, you see the cruelty in action as Professor Birch is being attacked by a zombie. As you try to save his life, it quickly gets clear that you're not fighting the zombies itself. No, you're fighting their zombified Pokemon like Bulbasaur here. You see, normally Pokemon faint when they can't fight anymore, but somebody took this a step further and made sure that Pokemon even have their fighting spirit in death. Once the zombie is defeated, he crumbles away into dust and Professor Birch brings me to a nearby town where everything is safe. On our way over there, we realize that we've lost our memory as Professor Birch has apparently known me for years. Once we tell him about Little Root Town and how it fully got destroyed, Professor Birch asks me if I've seen my brother or his daughter, May or Brendan. To which we unfortunately have to answer no, I don't even remember who they are. We don't even remember the total crisis the Pokemon region is in right now as zombies are rampaging through towns and taking over. Luckily, the town here seems to be totally fine as a fort, but little do they know that a zombie has managed to sneak its way into the Pokemart. But there's nothing we can do about it, so we just let that zombie eat everybody, leave town, and go to the next round where Professor Birch gives me a mysterious egg to take care of. He also tells me about my brother and how he won a Pokemon championship and is now the champion of Hoenn. He and May also went out on an expedition 3 weeks ago, but nobody has seen them since, and he wants me to go and find them. Considering it's my brother we're talking about here, I immediately head out. I try to leave town, but get stopped by a girl that seems to see me as an enemy. She wants to trash me and my Pokemon team, and seems to be a death caller. My Baltoy is able to beat her Sneasel with Sand Tombs and Rapid Spins, and in the end, she tells me to fear the name Alicia, because this won't be the last time we meet. On our path, we found somebody that was being attacked by a zombie, and once we kill the Polyhag and Rotmander she has, we don't only get a huge thank you from the trainer we just saved, but also his running shoes. And that's going to be very handy if you want to run away from hordes of zombies. On our way to Petalburg, we see some horrifying sights of zombies eating people, but in the end, we also find out that Petalburg City is totally emptied. There's almost no survivors left, and while I was looting some corpses, I managed to find leftovers, a great item that will keep my Pokemon's food supply running for years. There was nothing left for me in this town, so when I tried to leave, I ran into a guy that knew my brother. He knows that if we manage to find him, we will bring back peace to the region and put all of the dead back in their graves. He says that a long time ago they passed through Petalburg Woods and maybe they might still be there. But before we can find out any more information, we get attacked by a horde of zombies and he decides to offer his life up for me. As we run away, we hear his screams of agony in the background, but when we go to check, he's already gone. With that incredibly dark mental image out of the way, I decided to check up on Mr. Briny because maybe we can get a boat right there, but he has also turned into a zombie and is trying to eat people, so his house is closed off. Inside of Petalburg Woods, we get spoken to by a levitating legless corpse, who's actually a demon and wants to take over my body. We're not just going to let that happen though, so we decide to fight it here and now. This thing had 2 Pokemon, a Houndsauer that looked like it had seen better days, and also a Dirt Crow. Don't really know what the deal is with him, but we destroy both of them with Rock Tombs, and the demon then warns me about even stronger demons being in Rustboro City. She then crumbles into dust, and inside the remains we find the stone badge. Upon touching this badge, I get a flashback, reminding me of these very strong trainers called gym leaders. So I immediately start worrying. If gym leaders are defeated by the zombie apocalypse, are there even going to be any strong trainers left? But I guess there's only one way to find out, and that's exploring. But first, it's time to explore the sponsor of today's video, Luma Island, a co-op survival game that you can play on your PC or Steam Deck. But what is this game actually about? Well, you're stranded on a mysterious island with strange creatures called Lumas. You can find these in the wild as eggs and hatch them to create your own companions, which will help you on your journey. But they're only a very small part of the game. You can also build your very own base, as you start off with a little caravan and work your way up to crafting benches and decorations that can make your base look absolutely awesome. You can also pick from several unique in-depth professions, each with its own progression path. And you can also upgrade your tools to gather rare materials and collaborate with your friends and family to become the master of your crafts, all while exploring the island, solving quests, and helping the locals through their struggles in the town, as dangerous caves, ancient temples, mind-bending puzzles, and hidden treasures are awaiting you. So if all of this sounds interesting to you, you can check out Luma Island for yourself on Steam by clicking the links in the description to check out their socials or the game itself. A huge thank you to Luma Island for sponsoring this video, and let's get right back into it. We run past Pikachu heads put on stakes, floating decapitated heads that attack us, and the weird Jinx-like Pokemon that's named I. I don't know what's wrong with this game, but it's giving me very eerie vibes. There's even a horde of zombies that's trapped behind this fence, making it look like a zombie zoo with the death caller standing next to it. And as we talk to Alicia, we find out that she's been working with that demon we just defeated in the forest. You see, she's a servant of Lord Gravetrick, a mysterious character that we don't know too much about, but before we can even find out more, she decides to attack me again. Without many troubles, Baltoy rock tombs and sign beams his way through Sableye, Shuppet, and Sneasel, and after the battle, she says she's already rounded up a good amount of demons and is going to report back at Verdant Turf Town. So we try to join her, but run into another weird event where this guy is commanding this demon as they're about to take down the source of all the demon summonings. He also mentions that they've been cloaked with an invisibility skill, but somehow we can still see them. As we continue down the road, he notices me and says,
"You! Don't pretend to be confused. You can't fool me. What are you doing here?"
So we mentioned to him that we've lost our memory, which makes him look very suspicious and says,
"Very well, you may call me Glies. It seems like I've mistaken you for somebody else. You must possess an uncommonly strong second sight in order to be able to see me while I'm in my invisibility, and I only know one other human that can do that, so that's where my confusion came from."
We also say that we want to help him out because we heard him talk about his plan to take down all the demon summonings. But he wants to test me in a Pokemon battle to see if we're strong enough, so let's get to it. And he's only got one Pokemon which looks like a Deoxys, but is a lot less than that. It's called Face Leech and it's a pure poison type, so with Baltoy's Side Beam we beam it out of here and head to the tunnel together. Here he learns me how to summon demons. You first need a vessel and somebody else who chants a spell. This will make the demons show up and we have to get ready to defeat them. Once the demons come out, we see that they look like Groudon fused with Brock and have Anoriths as their companions, which are easily defeated. Once the spell chant is over, the demons disappear and Glies thanks us for helping out. Now we have access to Verdant Turf, where maybe somebody might know where my brother or May is hiding. Unfortunately, when we arrive there, we see that the entire town is in ruins. My head then starts hurting as I get a weird flashback, but when I get up, I'm lying unconsciously at the bottom of the cliffs. This is where we meet Alicia and one of her bosses, Pestilence of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. We somehow remember Pestilence from our flashbacks, and she seems pretty happy about that because she is actually the one that got Verdant Turf Town destroyed and actually tried to kill me. Now that we've lost our memory and forgotten who she is, she thinks she can easily take me out in a battle here and throw me into the lava pit. She only has 2 corrupted Grimers and a Coolfish, which you can easily side beam since they're all weak to it, and so with that defeat she leaves us alone, and Alicia confesses that she was in fact our ally before we lost our memory. She also apologizes for attacking me and then leaves. However, she did drop a Pokédex on our way out, and I immediately recognize it as Maze, so I decide to keep it with me and head to Dewford Town, which is predicted to be zombie-free because it's an island surrounded by water. But unfortunately, we can't get there by boat, so we get a call from Professor Birch who says that we need to find the balance badge and the HM for surf. So we use our newly acquired cut HM to get to a route we have never accessed before. Here we find a dead guy with a Pokeball on him, so we loot that, and it's a Magikarp that's holding the HM for surf. Now we only need that badge. Luckily for me, the last gym trainer from the Petalburg City gym is here. As all of the other employees died, that means she is now the leader, so if you manage to defeat her, we get the badge. After her Zangoose and Delcatty are defeated, we get our balance badge and surf to Dewford, where indeed there is no zombie to be spotted. But there is a place that emits a weird kind of energy, the Solar Caverns, so we go and check it out. Inside we capture our first Fakemon, Hombone, a pure rock type that will definitely help us out in the battle against this zombie apocalypse. As we make our way through the cavern, we get flashbacks from a weird black dragon, but we're not sure what they mean until we reach the end of the cave, where we find the source of all of this, the Dragon King Meteor, who claims that we have met before and says that our contract is terminated, and that the dragons have now joined the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And because Pestilence was not able to kill me, he's going to try and do it himself. He sends out his Dragonkin to try and take care of me, but with an ancient power boost and a few swift side beams, the Dragon King falls. He flees but says
that we will meet again.
We then go to the local gym leader Haruko to tell her everything that just happened, but she's just glad that the cave is safe again. She had a full dark type team, which would normally be a pretty hard task for me to defeat if I didn't level up my ball toy to evolve into a clay doll. Most of her team got destroyed by rock blasts from Hombone and ancient powers from clay doll until eventually King Magio appeared, a Pokemon that has no weakness and has Wonder Guard. So you either have to kill it with some kind of status or you have to let it struggle to death. I didn't really have anything to status it with, so I let it run out of moves and struggle it to death. With that win, we get our 3rd gym badge and the ability to surf the Slateport. Here we come across a number of zombified former chefs. They basically eat everything in sight and are incredibly scary, as they always run at you screaming at the top of their lungs. Once they're defeated, they don't crumble into dust like the zombies though, they just run away. It seems these were made by one of the other 4 horsemen named Famine, as this is another way they're trying to stop me. So we better tread carefully from here on out. It took me a while, but I eventually figured out where we had to go. Noticed something under the water near a shipping building. So we jump in and end up in the SS Kangrejo, a submarine that's being piloted by a man named Usher. He says that the submarine has retained a lot of damage and needs fixing, so we go down to the engine room to try and do that. So we go down, grab an archlight spanner which we can then use to repair the engine. Usher then thanks me for saving his submarine and teleports me out to the next route. I then make my way over to Mauville City where we meet Glyce again. He makes us invisible and lets us spectate a battle between zombies and a footman. These footmen are part of the Inquisition, a militant organization that is all that's left of the Hoen's collapsed government, and they're now basically in control of the region. Shortly after, their boss, a Taoist named Chloe, appears and vaporizes all the zombies and former chefs. Now that this area is clear of zombies, they all scatter and move on to the next. Chloe basically has full control over any undeads, just like Glyce, because they're both Taoists, and those 2 zombies that were next to her are actually her henchmen that are working for her. Glyce used to work for the Inquisition, but he's now being hunted by them because they think he started this whole zombie apocalypse. But we don't believe that because we saw him close that demon portal, which was supposed to help to put a stop to the zombie apocalypse. Glyce is glad we're on his side and tells us to go to New Mauville, where Dandelion, one of his followers, is waiting to give us further orders. Here we find out that all of the citizens of Mauville City have taken refuge here. There should be no zombies nor chefs here, yet there has been a murder, and we have to find out who it was. Yup, in this entire zombie apocalypse, we have to play a murder mystery party. So we do some scouting around and talk to all the residents. We quickly find out that the person was killed by an overcharged electrical attack, and the only person in here that uses electric type Pokemon Pokemon is the gym leader Watson, but he's maximized the power of his Pokemon with the new Mauville's generator, so we have to turn that off first. With this Pokemon then weakened, we can try and battle him. Because of my Claydol, his team is fairly weak to me besides his Raikou, but that doesn't mean his legendary electric beast is not going to go down. As I spam Rock Blast and Psybeam, his entire team eventually falls and Watson flees the scene, but we get a call from the police officer that's standing outside who informs us that they managed to capture Watson and we can finally leave New Mauville. We go to Watson's gym to battle a footman there to try and get the 4th badge, but he manages to get away and sneak into his hideout. We follow him to Route 110 and sneak into their hideout as well, but this is not something I was expecting. There was a series of puzzles we have to go through, which consists of finding 7 characters who represent the 7 deadly sins by going in and out of caves and defeating all of them. To which we find out there's actually 10 of them, not 7. A stupid joke that the ROM hack maker really likes because it keeps on returning, and once all of the blue afro dudes are defeated, we get to challenge their boss Asimov, who tells me there's a secret switch at the start of the forest that will teleport us into the Inquisition Hideout. And this place was absolutely atrocious, as you need to get through a floor that's basically a minefield. If you make a wrong step, you get sent back to the beginning. In the middle of the room, you have to fight all 10 of the 7 deadly sins twice, so that's 20 battles. Then once you get past those, you have to go through another section of minefields, just to get into the next room where you have to walk through tiles that spawn in random wild Pokemon for you to fight. Eventually, you reach the teleport puzzle, which sends you to a warehouse where you have to walk through the black void in order to get to the final room. This leads you into a cave system where you find Glyce being guarded by a pool of lava, but then Glyce says to come over because the pool of lava isn't a pool of lava at all. It's actually orangeade, some kind of soda. I know, I don't know what's going on anymore either, but let's just roll with it. We surf over to him and he tells me that his Pokemon and Pokegear have been taken by the Inquisition and we need to get them back for him before we can escape. So we look around for it and find Dr. Malfaisance, who wants to keep all Glyce's stuff for himself and even uses his Pokemon against me to battle. Taking down all of his Pokemon was a specialty of mine though, so we made it pretty quick and get everything back as well as the Dynamo badge from Watson, which he also had. After delivering Glyce's stuff, he teleports me out and gives me the HM for Rock Smash while he stays behind to fight the Inquisition on his own. With no real clear goal, we head north and break some rocks, giving us access to the desert. Inside, we get another flashback from Alicia, and we indeed see that she was helping me in this flashback, so we must have been friends before my memory got deleted. Luckily, our flashback wasn't for nothing because Alicia is actually here in this desert with her boss, Famine. He knows that we're the one who stopped the demon invasion and defeated his sister back at the ruins of Verdanturf. So we ask him if he knows anything about my brother and May. And of course he does, because they captured Brendan and May right here in this desert because they were trying to foil his plans too. He then orders Alicia to strike me down while he flees the scene, and even though Alicia doesn't want to, orders are orders, so we have to battle again. As usual, Claydol does the job and bulldozes through everything she can throw at me. And so we ask Alicia, why does everybody know me and what is even going on? She starts debating with herself whether she should tell me or not and runs off, and we get contacted by Professor Burge, who tells me we should head to the local mountain because there's a monastery there who can help me. So we head over there and see that the cable car's gone, so we'll have to hike up the mountain ourselves. And like usual, the path over there was filled with puzzles. Icy puzzles. But once we slid through all of those, we finally reached the mountain monastery. Here we go to the great sage who asks me for our help. We have to go back to the desert and help one of their brothers named Uzumi to defeat a foul monstrosity. So we head back to the desert where we see Sage Izumi fighting a pink Aerodactyl. They think this is a monstrosity. I know it's a shiny Pokemon, so I immediately captured that dinosaur. We head back to the monastery together with the sage, but see that there are more dark dark forces at hand, as the demons still hold the peak of the mountain, and so we'll have to drive them out. But upon arriving there, we just see the 7 deadly sins in the Inquisition, and Chloe is all the way at the end challenging Famine. But as she's trying to protect me because she thinks I'm just a regular citizen, she gets caught off guard, and Famine is able to overpower her. But Famine is too weakened to fight me and manages to flee yet again. So we check up on Chloe to see if she's okay, and then she recognizes me as the person that's been throwing mud in their eyes, together with our buddy Glyce. We explain to her that we think that they're the bad guys and Glyce and are the good guys, but Chloe explains that Glyce is actually the one that's been up to no good. You see, he might be battling the 4 evil horsemen, but he's fighting under a master that's even more dangerous than the one the evil horsemen serve, as they're also trying to launch an invasion in the east, and Glyce will be their spy, who was sent here to destroy our western forces from within. We then realize that Glyce hasn't actually been explaining anything to us and has basically just been using us as a puppet, so we decide to believe Chloe and join her side. She tells me to come to their second base in Fall Arbor, where we can discuss our next course of action. The head sage then comes to thank me because we apparently got rid of the demons here, and he now declares me a pure soul that can enter the sacred Shakyamuni Tower. We go to the top and talk to the Grand Elder, who says that our brother is not captured yet. He went to the Elite Four to try and get their help in Evergrande City, but in exchange for that information, he wants a battle. So me and my newly acquired Ridley take care of his Wobbuffet and Celebi with no problem, and as a reward we get a yellow Vespa. Personally, I prefer the classic red, but this baby got us through some pretty hard obstacles that led us to the Inquisition base in Fall Arbor town. Inside of the contest hall, we meet Alicia, who says that she has finally abandoned the 4 horsemen and is going to help us instead. She also explains our backstory, that we were once Death Callers together, and we're both working for Lord Gravedrick, the ruler of the underworld, who was deposed by the 4 horsemen. We fought against them, but in the end we lost, and in the midst of battle our house exploded, and while Alicia made it out alive, she thought I was dead. Nobody of our friends or family knew we were Death Callers, and we also used to have a contract with the dragons to fight against the 4 horsemen until we lost and the Dragon King turned against us. The 4 horsemen are now fighting against Glyce and his forces in the east, and they're using Meteor Falls as their base of operation. So if you want to stop any more lives from being taken, we have to go there and stop them. And so we relay our plan to Chloe, who agrees to join our battle, and with all of this help, we might actually be able to stand a chance. Inside, we get ambushed by a horde of zombies, but we manage to sprint past them, but then we get separated from Alicia just to find her later on in the deepest parts of the cave. I tell them to let her go, but they all start laughing together. There was never an Alicia. This is one of the 4 horsemen named War, and she has planted all of these flashbacks and memories and backstories in our mind, as none of them were even real. It was all part of their elaborate plan to get me here so I can be destroyed, before the evil lord in the east can get to me. However, we do not know what this lord wants with me, and that's where the dragons come in. They're trying to find out, for the 4 horsemen, what my role in all of this is. And the only reason the dragons are working with them is because they have his daughter locked up somewhere. And so I vow to bring Meteor's daughter back and restore Hoenn to its former glory by banishing all the demons, zombies, and horsemen. And so we get to fight the person that's been meddling with our mind all this time, War. She doesn't really have anything special on her team, just ghost and dark types, but there is one oddity, and that's a Giga Wolf, which looks awfully much like a weird Zoroark. Once all of her ghosts have been sent back to the battlefield, a loud voice speaks up and says,
Fools, you seek to claim what we do not need. You are not intended to interfere with the workings of the human world. For this transgression you shall be punished. For now, return.
And so all the horsemen get sent back to their realm by death. He says that he's impartial, but in the end he will come to all. And even though he has no desires, we are part of their plan, so we must also be eradicated. But I managed to jump in the water before he can strike me down, and we end up back in the submarine again. I know, what a coincidence, right? Only this time we have to repair the elevator before he drops me off in Fortree City. This means that we're now in the east, where the zombie forces are even stronger. And as we walk through the routes, we see that the zombies aren't regular zombies anymore, they're called battle zombies, and are buff and have katanas. After defeating one of them, we get HM05 Flash and track them down to the nearby weather station. Here we find Gleis, who admits that we are indeed his enemy and he's going to be bringing me to his boss if we don't defeat him here. But we make a deal. If we win in this battle, we get Meteor's daughter back. So we kill his Haunter, Quill Shark, Alakazam, and Viper, all with rock tombs and bites from Ridley. His final Pokemon, Face Leech, gets destroyed by a rock blast from Chaka, and with Gleis defeated, he says he won't give me any answers and hands me the dragon egg. The egg then starts talking to me and says that the 4 horsemen imprisoned me here because even unborn, she is a powerful psychic. She could have called for help from anywhere, but here the thunderstorm interferes with her psychic abilities. So our next task is to bring this egg back to the Dragon King. On our journey, we run into Dr. Blackthorn, an acquaintance of Meteor the Dragon King. He says we need to head to Moss Deep City because that's where their hideout is, so we say goodbye and start heading there. But we run into these weird people called T-Fangers who call up these creatures with their phone to fight for them. It's kind of like Pokemon, but different, and I'm pretty sure there used to be a Pokemon ROM hack called Pokemon Diamond where all of these creatures were in. It's a stupid little reference, but they still ask for our help. Apparently, they've been brought to this world via the antenna tree, who is somewhere up on Mount Pyre, and we have to see if we can send them back. As we arrive at the top of Mount Pyre, we meet Temulance, an associate of Gleis. He's been telling all the T-Fangers that have been attacking us that we broke the antenna tree and that's why they've been stuck here, and now it's time for him to deliver me to his boss. But we're not going down without a fight. So we take down his weird creatures, Fangasu, Nigeria, and Kuriputo, and that's when he realizes that I'm way too strong for him. He puts the antenna tree back, and so the T-Fangers get sent back to their own world. I wanted to head to the Safari Zone, but that has been blown up, so instead I head back to Fortree City and see what I can find there. We get another call from Professor Burge, who says that we have to head to the university because they've got them problems there. Apparently, Winona has been taken by the zombies, and Winona's brother is kind of going insane over it. So we have to check up on him and see if everyone's okay. Once we enter the building, we see that the entire thing is filled with movie sets and students that are recording their own movies. And because we keep interrupting them, they keep fighting me. After some more searching though, we find Winona's brother's office, who says that his name is Veracity. He says that something has gone totally wrong in the basement as their researchers were working on a robot who has now taken over and is killing anybody that comes nearby, so he wants me to go and take care of it. So we head downstairs and fight X32 763, and the thought that immediately entered my head was I should capture this thing. So that's what I did. I returned to Veracity, who says that he needs to head to the gym to take care of something, so we follow him and find out that Winona is still here, only she's chained up as a zombie. So we decide to put her out of her misery by taking out her Dirt Crow, Iron Reaper, Grim Reaper, and Scar Lugia. Luckily, most of them were still flying types, so we blasted them out of the air with rocks. When we're about to take her out, Veracity shows up and says that we should leave her alone because he can't let his sister die. And that's when we realize he's been keeping this gym locked for everybody because he's been keeping his sister alive all this time. But that's not safe at all, so when we threaten to tell everybody, he attacks us out of nowhere, showing that he's finally gone mad. He has a full fire-type team with a Psychic, Blaziken, and even Ho-Oh all the way at the end, which means that he shares a similar weakness to his sister, that all of his Pokemon are weak to rocks. After the battle, he realizes that his sister has to die, and he's been trying to do it for the past couple of days, and because he doesn't have the courage to do it, I decide to do it myself. I take the sacred swords from his hands and slash Winona, which makes her crumble into dust. After this, Veracity seems unburdened and leaves without saying a single word. So we go through a very weird and confusing cave system, fight a couple of blue trolls, and kill a monster that is made up out of stitched together Pokemon. Yeah, I also don't know why anybody would make this, but it's dead now and we finally reached Lilycove City. But before we can even enter, we have to fight the 7 deadly sins yet again, with their stupid puns. Once defeated, they scatter and leave, and we see that this town has been taken over by the Inquisition. So we go and talk to their boss Chloe, who says that we've served our purpose. After defeating the Horseman, we're the only threat left, and so they want to take us out. But just when they're about to strike me down, some of the dragon kin come to our savior. While they take on the grunts, we're supposed to strike down Chloe, so let's get to it. And while she might have put up a decent fight with her Alakazam, Wigglytuff, Aggron, Persian, Gengar, and finally Face Leech, none of it was enough to overpower the great Zwiggojr. When she's defeated, she gets eaten by the dragons together with her henchmen, and then they fly me to Fort Draco in Moss Deep City, an island where all the dragons can live in peace and even tame their very own Charizards. After some exploring, we go and talk to Meteor and return his daughter to him. And as a thanks, he hands me the HM for Fly, making traversing the region a lot easier. Dr. Blackthorn also warns me that the forces of the East have been moved into Lilycove and are looking for me, so we have to watch out if we ever return there. But I love these dragons, so I guess I'll be staying with them for a little while. And the first thing I do is go to their Dragon Hall, which is basically Moss Deep City Gym, just filled with dragons. And at the end of the gym puzzle, you get to face Meteor. His team is very repetitive. We have 4 dragons, a Kingdra, and an Altaria to take care of. And with my iron slamming robot, most of them get defeated without even a single thought. And for defeating Meteor, we get the Knight's Emblem, which is basically the 6th gym badge, and the title of Knight, because we are so strong and have saved the region from so many catastrophes already. But there's a couple more waiting in line for us as we get a call from Professor Birch again. He says that my brother and his Swampert have been sighted in Lilycove City and that we have to head there as quickly as possible. So I fly there on the back of my Aerodactyl and see Dantaline and his army of zombies standing in front of the market. And he starts filling my head with thoughts. Why am I even trusting Professor Birch? How am I getting these flashbacks, and can I even trust the flashbacks? But even with all of these doubts in my head, I decide to head into the market, and on every single floor we see the 7 deadly sins fighting Glyce and his army. They tell me that they finally decided to side with me and are trying to fight off the evil that resides at the top. So together with the Blue Afroed Bros, we defeat Glyce, Temulance, and all the zombies. After this, we reach the top, and we see Asimov battling this weird hooded man. He's the one that's behind all of this, and he snaps away Asimov like it's nothing. His name is Senex, and if the deadly sins didn't interrupt, he would have been able to summon 1,000 more zombies. He then says he wants my eyes and will do anything to get them, and declares a battle against me with his 3 legendary Pokemon. Termur the Mushroom, who gets defeated by Rock Blasts and Crab Hammers from Chaka. Lucas Zamon, who gets Iron Slammed by my robot. And finally Shaderu, who withdraws back to the shades after my robot lasers it out of here. With that defeat, he decides to retreat, and so we have saved Lilycove City yet again from another zombie apocalypse. One of the 7 deadly sins then comes up to me and says that they're actually part of the ancient order of the Afro. They basically exist to combat all necromancy and joined up with the Inquisition at first because they thought they were the best at taking down the zombies. But now that they've seen my power, they're ready to support me in anything we have to do. He tells me the Dark Lord's lair is somewhere underneath Sutupolis City in the south. They actually helped my brother to get there, but he has not returned yet and they fear for the worst. And they don't want the same to happen to me, so in order to prove our strength, we have to go and challenge the Elite Foreign Champion so they can bring me there too. He then hands me the HM for dive and we head to Victory Road. As we make our way through the harsh environment and eventually even reach the end, we get stopped by Timulance again. He says he's going to kill me for what I did back at the department store, and while he can try, we all know he's going to fail, as most of his team was weak and pathetic, and not even his Entei could save him. And while this might not be the last we see of him, we can finally move on to the Pokemon League. At first they hesitate to let me in because we only have 6 badges, but we remind them that this is a zombie apocalypse and the reason we're going in might be crucial to stopping it. That's when they decide to let us through and we get to face the first member, Caitlin. She specialized in the fighting type, so all we needed was Claydol and his Psybeams. I do want to note that there was one weird Pokemon in here, Kenshukuo, who had the wings of a Kyogre, but besides that, nothing all that special happened in this fight. To League Master Benny, a hitman that specializes in flying types. And I'm guessing we're getting pretty lucky with these typings here because they get destroyed by all my rock type moves. The third one was just Glacia, who survived through all of this, but her ice got crushed by our rocks pretty quickly. So in the end, there was only one more member remaining, Indigo the Thunder King. And from his appearance alone, I think you've already figured out that he's going to specialize in electric types. Humbone and Claydol really came in clutch here as they rock blasted an ice beam through everything he threw at me. Even his legendary Zapdos was frozen and fell to the ground. So after this huge display of power, we could finally challenge the protector and champion of this region, Feng Lei. His starting Pokemon Hitmontop got beamed by my Claydol, but his incoming Rock Lobster was a little bit too strong and took me out with some Dragon Claws. With an Iron Slam from my robot, Ramshacker had to come in, who died after a couple of data streams. Bouffalant and Radiant Orange both fell to Rock Blast from Chukka, and his final team member King Maggio had to struggle himself to death. We then get put into the Hall of Fame, but our journey isn't over yet. We head into the sewers of Lily Cove City because there's some clues to be found there. First, we enter the power room where we find some jammed switches and only one of those was working. This lifted the waterfall that was blocking our path, leading us to another room with a teleport puzzle. Once you get through all of those, you get to the end of the sewer. Beyond that door is supposed to be the lair of Senex where my destiny awaits. But when we walk through, we get a funny feeling that this isn't Sutupolis, as we get ambushed by Glyce and his goons. They broke the lever that was supposed to bring us to Sutupolis City so they could trap me here. But before they can grab me, I run back into the sewers as Glyce chases behind me. He eventually catches up to me with his black magic and sends me away into a different dimension where I wake up in my own bed. And so I start thinking that all of this was a dream. Our mother calls us downstairs for some breakfast, but when we talk to her, she turns into Glyce. We run outside, and after talking to some more Glyce doppelgangers, we eventually wake up in Necropolis, a subterranean prison of some sort that I need to find a way out of. But we're being guarded by a battle zombie with level 100 Pokemon, and after we get defeated, he kicks me in the face and we wake back up in Pacifilog Town. And Professor Blackthorn here knew what happened and saved me from Senex's lair. Blackthorn says that my Pokemon might be strong, but me myself, I'm weak. That's why they were able to subdue me and trap me in their lair in the first place. That's why we're here in Pacifilog Town. He needs me to go and talk to the gym leader of this town. His name is Esso, and his powers make the sages in the mountains look like fools. And we'll have to study under him. So we surf over to his gym, but the only thing we see is a mirror. So we go up to it and say, Candyman, Candyman, Candyman. Then a weird man with a hook steps out of it, kills me, and puts me back in Pacifilog. So there's something else I need to do to solve this riddle. So we go to a random shift inside of a Pokemon Center, buy some Red Stew, and go back to the mirror. And this is where the game just totally derails. It's going to be full-on puns and stupid stuff that doesn't matter, but I'm going to try and explain it to you. This time we go back to the mirror and say Hairy Man. Then a hairy man shows up and says,
I want that red stew.
We say that we will give him the stew if he learns us his secrets, but he's not willing to do that until we beat him in a battle. So we defeat his Verculon, Kenshiroko, Gyarados, Basculin, and Spiritomb to receive the focus badge from Ezzo's mirror. We hand over the stew and he tells me to come to Sundance Rock at midnight so that we can learn all of his secret techniques to fight evil. Apparently Sundance Rock is all the way back in Dewford Town, and after doing some bike path puzzles, we eventually reach it and see that Esso is inside of the Sundance Rock. He breaks the fourth wall a couple of times, chants some nonsense, and in the end we just say that all of this is stupid. Esso is stupid, the zombies are stupid, everything in this world doesn't make sense. And with that quote, we somehow kill Ezo and grab an Excalibur from his body. You know, the legendary sword with a million tails dyed into it? Yep, that thing is going to protect us physically. Professor Birch then calls us and tells us to come to Sky Pillar, which is turned into an abandoned mine. Upon arriving there, we see a ton of people excavating the rocks that Rayquaza once guarded. Inside, we find another cave puzzle where we have to fight the 7 deadly sins again. They don't provide anything useful and are just here to make me waste more time. And once they're defeated, I run over a big cliff with lava under it, and the old man stops me saying,
You shall not pass.
and boom, all of a sudden there's a Lord of the Rings reference. We see a ton of miners stampeding for a gold rush, and once they pass, we manage to find Blackthorn. He says that Sutupolis is being guarded by dark magic and that we need light magic to get in. But before we chant the spell that's going to get us in, he hands me a Toxic Rogue, Pokemon from my past that I had totally forgotten. This triggers in another flashback where I see my brother giving me Krogunk as my first Pokemon. And so he rejoins my party and we put our hands on the rock next to Dr. Blackthorn and get teleported inside of Sutupolis, where we enter our special HQ that's being guarded by a barrier from the sages. Blackthorn brings us inside where our meeting is about to start. Firstly, we get applauded by everybody as we had to find many evils in order to get here. Then we learn that this is the Resistance, and mostly all of our friends are in this group. Now the plan of action is that me, Meteor, Sage Izumi, and Mr. Steven Stone are going to have to combat Senex because we are the only ones that have the raw power to do it. But we can't just storm their hideout just like that because it's filled with thousands of zombies. If we go in, we'll just die. But one of their spies managed to get a floor plan of the Senex Necropolis, which shows a back entrance that we can sneak in from. And then we'll all split up so that everybody can do their tasks. So me and my squad head out into Sutupolis City and find the back entrance. Once we're inside, we spread out around the 4 entrances that are inside and we go into the Incarceration Chamber. This leads us to a huge ledge puzzle that took me quite literally more than 20 minutes to beat. But eventually we reach the middle of the chamber where we see a couple of people turned into statues from Star Wars. They're prisoners and we are here to rescue them. So with the help of a switch, we move them to one of the lower levels and this triggers an alarm. So I straight up jump after them. I then press the release button and see that my brother Landon was inside. He's incredibly glad to see me and sees that the power in me has changed, admitting that we're probably way stronger than him by now. We also release his girlfriend May, but both of them have been in carbonite for so long that they can't fight, so they'll leave the rest of this mission to me, while they'll be able to get to safety. Now you might be wondering what's in the other 2 statues. One of them is Wally, who nobody cares about, and in the other, it's the Trick Master. Yep, the guy from the Trick House. Don't ask me how he ended up here, but we're just going to leave him alone. Of course, we have to get through another maze while fighting monstrosities like Shinigami and Stitcher. Once all of these guards are defeated, we get to see how our other 3 team members are doing. Meteor, Steven, and the Sage are all in trouble as they're losing their battles against their respective opponents. And now it's up to us to break the 4th wall, get through another maze, and save the Horn region one final time. So we jump into a pool of water, crash a weird concert, and get an autograph from the lead singer before doing some quizzes that finally lead me to the peak of Senex's hideout. And we're here to confront him once and for all, but our friends have sadly enough been taken out and turned into carbon statues. But before we can do anything about this, Senex attacks me with his face leech. We kill it with a rock blast. Ridley then takes out Luca Zamon with some rock tombs. Our robot is able to paralyze Termer and take it out with yet some more iron slams. And Shaderu also gets slammed from the back. But even though Senex lost, he still snaps me out of existence, but something starts interfering with his power. It's Asimov from the 7 Deadly Sins, who was supposed to be dead. He uses his special power of justice, the Didgeridoo Pump Action Blast, and also uses it on Glyce and his companion, which kicks them all off the mountain. But Senex survives and runs back up the mountain, saying there's still one more thing he can do. And that's destroying Hoenn by baking a cake. Yep, he grabs all the ingredients, flour, eggs, water, and boom! The region is gone, and we're there, standing next to Asimov in heaven. But Senex is also here. And with a couple of well-thought references, we managed to get him down to his knees. And with one last bojum, we get rid of him as well as Asimov on accident. I then use one more plot device named Complete Atlas to put the Hoenn region and everybody we love back. And I tell them that it's finally over and that Senex has been defeated. But there's still zombies roaming around because I accidentally restored Hoenn to its state before Senex took over. But without Senex to lead them, we'll soon mop them up. We then have one celebratory party together, and that is fortunately the end of Pokemon Snakewood. And I've only got one thing to say about this game to you. Don't play it.